thank you everyone who's joined us today for this SGK webinar. My name's Stephen Marshman. I'm part of the European Business Development team at SGK. I'm really excited today. We're going to be talking about the animal health sector and some of the work that we're lucky enough to do with some really great client partners in this space. To learn a little bit more about this category and talk about some of that work, I'm really pleased that we're going to be joined today by two of our own subject matter experts. Two people who've got a wealth of experience of working with clients in this category, albeit in quite different areas as well. So we'll get straight to it and do some introductions. If firstly, Irfan, I'll turn to you. Could you just tell us a little bit about your role at SGK and how this has brought you into contact with clients in this category?
Thanks, Marshy. Yeah, be happy to. So my name's Irfan Sultan. I am the Global Account Director for a top 3 animal health company. My role at SGK is managing the operational and commercial elements of said global client, and that is managed through a global team of about 85 personnel spread across 3 dedicated offices based out of EMEA, APAC, and the Americas region. I previously managed a number of healthcare and pharma clients, which got me into this sector. And then this particular client who I look after now over the last 10 years has gone through significant growth, both organically and through acquisition. And it was the client's request that I be dedicated to managing their account to oversee that growth associated with their business, and I've been managing them for the last 10, 11 years.
Great. Well, that sounds like a big piece of work there. So I'm keen to hear a bit more about that in a moment. Caroline, I'll turn to you and just ask the same question, a little bit about what you do at SGK and again, how it's kind of brought you into contact with the sector.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. My name is Caroline Kim. I'm the VP of Strategy and Research at SGK. I've been here for a little over 12 years, and our team is primarily responsible for brand strategy, portfolio architecture, innovation, and consumer research. We work on a variety of categories, and animal health and pet care are one. So I think there's been a lot learned that we can use from analogous categories to inspire our work in animal care and pet care. And to your earlier point, the growth, especially during COVID in the pet health space, has allowed us to work on some really exciting opportunities with our clients. So excited to talk more about the different types of projects we've been able to do with them.
That's great. No, look forward to digging into that too. So I'll turn back to you, Irfan, to kind of get into a bit more detail. You touched on the fact, you've experienced before in working on the kind of pharma categories as well. Animal healthcare, it's a highly regulated sector. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of those sector requirements that say differentiate it from, typically what we do with a kind of branded goods client or a retail client, for example?
Yeah, sure. So in the pharma environment, you hear the phrase GMP a lot, and that stands for good manufacturing practices. So that underpins everything, and therefore it's closely aligned with the human pharma industry. And that basically means quality underpins everything that we do. Everything has a procedure, a process, it's controlled. Sure. And that is a compliance measure that we have to adhere to. Having a quality management system, QMS system, is essential. Ensuring every part of the process is documented. An independent quality function is required to ensure there's no bias from the operational side. It's totally independent. There's regional and country-specific regulatory requirements. Now that still exists in the branded and the retail field, but you are very much limited to the element of aesthetic change that you're allowed to make. Everything has to run through the authorities, yes. And that could be something as simple as adding an additional sentence in some instances. That has to go through the regulatory authorities. and change, specifically any type of change has to be managed and implemented in a controlled manner. You can't just say, right, we're going to change this process, or we're going to change this element on a piece of packaging. That every change is managed and controlled, and those, I would say, are the kind of main differentiating factors.
Well, that's really helpful to start building up a picture there. Caroline, I guess another characteristic where we can kind of think of points of difference would be around audience. So again, I'm thinking a piece of packaging. When we're typically thinking about branded products and retail, we're primarily focused on the kind of consumer having that experience in a kind of shelf context. That's a little bit different. Again, when we talk about animal health, we've got a slightly more complex relationship when we think about audience, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. We've worked on a variety of products in the animal health space, and there are some that, the product was exclusively sold to just veterinarians. And as they launch the same product now to consumers, that transition in space, so understanding the efficacy and the clear benefits from an expert perspective to be able to translate that to a consumer shopping these products for their pet has been key to some of the redesign projects that we've worked on. Most recently, we did a big consumer persona and vet persona, as well as journey maps for the animal health industry. And I do think that unlike traditional CPGs, to your point, we're typically just focused on the end consumer, but the vet plays such a pivotal role in really helping with decision making and getting some advice at the initial appointments or throughout the pet's sort of journey. So we've really looked at understanding not only the different types of audiences from a consumer standpoint, but also the different types of vets that also exist on the expert professional side. So we really have that dual audience depending on the projects that we're working on, and it's been a great way to really see the pet industry grow, or the animal health industry grow, by those worlds coming together a little bit more as things become a bit blended for some of the products and brands that we've worked on.
No, that's really, really interesting, and it kind of tells me already that you need to specialize here. It's a little bit different to some of the other work we do. I'm going to try to think a little bit about context now, and certainly we've all lived through a strange couple of years. Irfan, you started off describing a really large global relationship that you look after. You're responsible for this critical materials in terms of the packaging artwork you manage. I think about the challenges that we went through with the pandemic. You add on to that the fact that through that period, there was a kind of a spike in terms of things like pet ownership. So no doubt that had an effect as well when we think about animal health. How did you keep the wheels turning? What did you do from a kind of systems and a technology kind of perspective to kind of weather this perfect storm that we've seen over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so to set the scene, my client in particular made the biggest acquisition the industry has ever seen, right 6 months into the pandemic.
As if there wasn't enough going on, right? You had that too.
Exactly. We were managing 7,000 pieces of artwork changes a year. That doubled to 14,000 stroke 15,000. The wheels kept turning. The client was forging ahead with the acquisition, and what we had to do was increase our team by 40% globally. So that's an additional 25 people approximately globally we had to recruit, all remotely. Yeah. And we have to train them all remotely. And we've never undertaken anything like that before. Our training has always been done face-to-face, in person, but due to the pandemic, that just wasn't possible. And at the same time, our existing team and staff had to completely work remotely from home. So you have the challenges of connection, of bandwidth, trying to make sure that they're in a controlled environment, working from home. So we had all these challenges, and the day job still continues. That doesn't change. And so, we were fortunate in the fact that SGK the foundations of SGK in terms of technology were already in place. In terms of remote connection, we had that, and we could build on top of that. So we already had a robust quality management system for the client, all electronic, and we had throughout the years moved away from paper-based system to a digital system. So whichever member of the team we had globally, they could access the same information at any given time, and that was key. We also had a global talent pool that had many years of experience and the dedication to get the job done, and that enabled us to train the newcomers and embed them as quickly as possible. Planning was critical to everything that we did. If we didn't plan effectively, then we wouldn't have been able to be successful. And 2 years down the line, I still pinch myself thinking, how on earth did we do that? Because it was a huge undertaking. But a lot of that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the digital technology tools at our disposal to utilize, especially for remote working. And we're still working in that environment, and most of our teams have not even met each other face to face. But the project has been a success. Nothing has dropped. And again, it's technology is one piece, but you can't take away the element of people. You have to have the people to be able to execute the plan. And fortunately, we had the people.
It's a remarkable, it's an incredible achievement. It really is, and I think it really, it shows to me that how critical that partnership is. There's a huge reliance on us to be able to, do what we do, but to then carry on doing it with all that adversity and those absolutely. Things going on. Kind of mad time in the world. Just thinking about our role, obviously, we touched upon the fact that for this client, the key focus has been around packaging. Has that sort of remained a very isolated focus of the work that we do for your client, or have you seen any change, certainly in recent years, where we're perhaps being asked to do things or get involved in projects on other areas of brand experience at all?
Yeah, I'd say over the last 2-3 years, more so, the animal health industry has predominantly been vet-based, and although there's been pockets of retail channels being explored over the last couple of years, there's definitely been more exposure in the retail space. More so on the US side of the market, I would say, which has resulted in us providing more assets which are used in kind of 3D renders, hero shots, but then they are used in ad campaigns, in product launches, other types of campaigns that marketing use, and they recirculate those assets that we provide in all sorts of other materials that they use. Connected pack initiatives have become more prevalent, and where we would have traditionally stopped at the packaging piece, we're now interacting more on the marketing agency side, where we're working closely with them to provide the assets that they need. That makes their life easier when it comes to creating those campaigns. So yeah, definitely more marketing involvement from our side, where previously that would have just been the design side, and that was it. Now we're seeing more downstream activity where we're getting involved, because the assets that we create, the artwork piece, is redistributed and reused in lots of other elements, and the marketing people are finding that we can be a really good conduit with the agencies to help them formalize and execute their marketing plans as they move along the chain.
Caroline, this feels like a great time to bring you back in. I'm hearing from Irfan this kind of expansion beyond our kind of traditional role as very much kind of in a lane that focuses on the execution or packaging side of things. It feels like both the need to do that is changing from the client, but it's also, I guess, for us and certainly for teams like yours, for SGK to start being regarded more in a kind of creative and, dare I say, strategic sense. I'm guessing that's where you and your teams have been able to kind of help this sector a bit more.
Yeah, no, we've developed some really strong client relationships that have started with packaging redesign and through the strategy team that is able to do some of the things that I said earlier in terms of helping a brand reposition or understanding the architecture of all the products and how best to organize them to be more consumer facing, or just to better understand their consumers and their vets. I think we've been pivotal to really expand on the types of capabilities on the strategy side. So, looking at trends and what are the 3 to 5 years from now and what do we have to be prepared for, or how can we leverage quantitative research to make some business decisions of what and how to look at products within the company that we're working with. And then finally, that persona journey map project that has nothing to do with the redesign. It will inspire all the agencies that they work with externally, but also internally as an organization to understand that consumer immediately. So I think there is a ton being borrowed from, I think, Irfan, to your earlier point, the team used to be more on the vet side and therefore less equipped to do the marketing capabilities. But as the organization starts to hire those with a CPG background and are used to sort of that rigor from a strategy and marketing side, or they're hiring a junior marketer to handle their social and therefore bringing in that fresh perspective, I do think that's allowed us to go beyond packaging design and really do things that really reflect the SGK experience capabilities.
Yeah, and that's crucial, I think, as well. And it's kind of really interesting to kind of think about, Irfan, you're talking more, potentially about kind of marketing relationships. And it feels like kind of, talking about connected pack, and it's like that blurring of those boundaries a little bit. And I have that sense that that this category will, of course, value all those things that Irfan opened up at the start and talked about in terms of understanding how highly regulated this world. But I guess if we can then also bring to that this experience we do have with kind of CPGs in the branded world, I'm thinking, Caroline, that this kind of gives us coverage across both areas, and that's something, right, that they like us to borrow from that kind of CPG stuff a little bit to help them as they move their business into new space.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think the one thing that we learned over COVID is the pet is the family's, a child in their home. And I do think the importance and the investment and the priorities that pet owners are making for their pet now have the animal health industry figuring out how to make their products and brands more relevant to them. I look at the traditional pharmaceutical industry as a really great analog. A lot of us are familiar now with the active ingredients or the brands that exist within pharma. And I think animal health is learning a lot from there as well. So they can go in and recommend a specific vaccine or a specific product or medication because we're just more aware about all the different things that are out there. So, through our consumer persona work, the pet is really a big part of the family. And I do think that investment, again, is prioritized and highlighted a lot of great opportunities for the animal health world.
That's great. So, yeah, it sounds like exciting times ahead. We've been on a great journey, but more to come. Caroline, Irfan, I thank you both for some really great insights today. It's been really fascinating to hear. I've certainly learned a lot. I really hope that everyone who's joined us for the webinar has enjoyed this session. We hope to see you again sometime with one of these webinars. But thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, Marshy.
Say goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.